Blessings, everyone. Welcome to Heart to Heart. Today we're going to talk about grudges. Are you holding any grudges? How's it working out for you? Probably not very well. Grudges keep you stuck. They keep you stuck in the past. They force you to live in a state of anger and bitterness. Uh, it causes tension in your stomach. It causes tension in your heart and your shoulders. It raises your blood pressure. It's it's just not very good. It's very self-destructive, actually. Um, why do people hold grudges? And what is a grudge? By definition, a grudge is a persistent feeling of ill will or resentment that resulted from a past insult or injury. So that the key words here are persistent and past. Someone has insulted you and you're so hurt that you can't even say to them, "Oh my goodness, you've insulted me." And what you do is you say, "You know what? They're never going to hurt me again. I'm not going to be close enough. They won't get to do that again. They won't get to say that again." And you start to build these walls, emotional walls. A grudge is like that. It's like a shell. And it's a quiet rebellion. You feel in your mind that you're going to teach that person a lesson for wronging you, or you're going to just hold out. It's like a standoff. You're going to hold out until they acknowledge the wrong or apologize. Now, the problem with that is that most of the times when someone has insulted you or harmed you, they don't even know. They were not aware at all that they hurt you as much as you've been hurt. And so now they go on with their life and they're living, and you see them and they're, la di da di da. And you become more angry because you're like, wow, you hurt me and you're not going to acknowledge it. And remember what I said, they might not be aware. We live in a world today where sarcasm and cynicism is common. We see it on TV. Sitcoms are built on it. The insulting, quick wittiness. That's what people do. Don't internalize it so deeply. It might not even be all of that. If, let's say, it was a relationship, you broke up with someone, and it was a bitter end for you, but the person moved on and they met someone else and they get married and do all these things, or travel, and you run into a mutual, which is a thing I'm going to go back to. You run into a mutual and they say, "Oh wow, I just saw so and so, and they look so great," and you're like, festering, seething inside with anger and hostility, because how could they be doing great when they did me wrong? And now you're dwelling on it again, and that anger is building up. You're raising your blood pressure. Not a good situation. What you need to do is try to acknowledge and understand what it is that the person did. What about the insult, or what about the injury that hurt you so much? If you can understand what it is that causes you the pain, then you can let it go. Because lots of times pain, we don't understand the point of impact. We don't understand why. We can't make any sense of it. And that's not to say that you will always make sense of it. Sometimes it's just pointless. People can be cruel sometimes, and sometimes people can just be mindless. They just say and do things and they don't really think about what it is that they're saying. So if you're able to, if it's a friend that you've had for years, or even if it's a coworker and you still have to be in their presence, you may need to open up the lines of communication. You may need to say to them, "Listen, when you said XYZ back in 1815, it really hurt me. And I wanted to share with you why it hurt me or how you hurt me." And let the person know. Like I said, most times they're not even going to be aware. They're going to be like, "Oh my goodness, I didn't know. And I'm so sorry. How can I make it right?" If it's someone who's moved away, write a letter. "Dear so and so, we used to be good friends, And back in 1815 you said such and such, and it really hurt me. And I'm sorry that it took me 200 years to bring it to your attention, but I just wanted to let you know. And then this way you give them a chance to either give you the apology that you're holding out for, because that's what a grudge is. It's like a standoff. You're waiting for that person to acknowledge that they hurt you. You're waiting for that person to apologize for hurting you. And so that this way you give them the opportunity to do just that. Now, either they will acknowledge it and apologize, or they won't. They may even laugh it off and be like, you're silly. And in either case, once you release it, you have to let it go. You're not going to keep dwelling on it. You're not going to keep rehashing it. You don't want to keep putting your body through it. Another thing you can do is try to put yourself in that person's position. If it's a friend or a coworker, think about what it was that they may have been going through or may have experienced at the time that they were insulting or injurious to you. And I'm not saying justify, saying, okay, well, they just broke up, so that gives them the right to treat you wrong. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying try to acknowledge and understand where it is that the insult or the injury came from. Sometimes if you can understand and put yourself in the other person's place, you won't want to hold a grudge because it's not personal. You don't want to take it personally. Another thing that you can do is don't dwell on it. If someone has injured you or insulted you, let it go. Don't take that stuff personally. If it's not someone that you have to live with or someone that's in your family, you don't have to really take it on. You can, just deflect it. It's their issue. It's not you. If you know who you are and you know what you're about, the insult or the injury is probably not even true. It's probably not even accurate, We as people tend to do that. Sometimes you're born into a grudging family and there's nothing you can do about it. You don't even understand what the grudge was about because you weren't there when it first happened. And it's damaging. Grudges can be damaging to families, to children, because you teach them to hold grudges. I know of two friends. They were friends, two women who were friends, and they later became sister-in-laws. But what happened was somewhere in between them transitioning, from being friends to sister-in-laws, something happened. Some insult or some injury occurred to one, and they stopped talking to each other. Now these sisters, because that's what they were, lived in the same house. One lived upstairs, one lived downstairs. And they didn't speak for about 45 years. It might have even been longer. 45 years of not talking to your friend. And what happened was that, we were in the middle of it as children. We were kind of born into this feud, so to speak. And we were not really forced to take sides. It was kind of quietly understood that we didn't speak to that sister. That, we had to be loyal to this sister. And it was kind of difficult because that sister was kind of interesting and was in the house. And, as a child, you're curious because, what happened? What was it? So fast forward 40 years later, the one sister says to me, well, would you like to know why I don't talk to the other sister? And I was like, yeah, because I grew up my whole life not understanding what the feud was about. And when I heard the story, it was really sad. It was a very sad story, and I can understand why the one sister didn't want to talk to the other sister, but I couldn't understand why it took 45 years to verbalize it. And I guess it's because she was really, really hurt. And I can understand, the situation that she explained. It was painful, and it was life altering, and it was devastating. It definitely was for her. Now, because I am the person that I am, I went to the other sister and I said, wow, sister just told me why she doesn't talk to you. Would you like to know? And she was like, yeah, I do. I really do. Now remember, I said it's been about 45 years. So I tell sister what it was, and she says, no kidding. Wow. So for 45 years, she blamed me for this situation or for this event, and she was just, in awe. She just couldn't believe it, and she was like, wow, wow. And I too was like, wow, wow. Now, sadly, sister still never approached the other sister and said, this thing happened and we used to be best friends, but this one thing happened and I just couldn't forgive you. And they both physically left this earth without ever reconciling. And I learned from that you can't hold those things inside of you. You can't harbor those feelings. You've got to let it out. You've got to forgive. They spent 45 years in the same house, never speaking to each other, never doing events together. And it was weird because we had to do an event with this sister, and then the other sister was always looking out from the window because she wasn't included, because there was that grudge. And it's sad. So you don't want to do that. Same thing with a relationship. You break up with someone, the other person moves on. They've learned to accept that the relationship wasn't a positive one. It wasn't good. But instead of being angry, they learn from it and take all the good parts, and now they've invested that into a new relationship. And the proof is the bitter person is still bitter, watching the other person live their life, go on, being happy, and they're bitter, wondering why no one is liking them. How come they're not happy? How come they can't be with anyone? It's because you've transformed yourself into a once nice person into a bitter, angry person. And bitter and angry is not attractive. It's not attractive. No one wants to be around a bitter, angry person. I'm sure all of you have or know someone who holds grudges, and be honest, they're not fun to be around, because you don't know who to mention. If you mention a friend or if you mention a situation, you don't know if they're gonna be like, oh no, I don't like them, or I don't like that, or I can't do this, I can't. They're very closed off, they're very standoffish, they're not open, they're not forgiving, they're not willing to live in the present. They're stuck in the past at whatever point of injury or insult that they started their grudge. So you don't want to be that grudgeful person. You don't want to hang on to those ill feelings. It messes with your heart chakras. Anyone that knows anything about the chakras knows that resentment, feelings, those things are held here. And what it does is it dims your light. And then it starts to interfere with all the other chakras, because, they all work together. It's in alignment. So if one is blocked, everything is blocked. Grudges are not held in your head. Grudges are held in your body. You feel it. Think of someone that you may be holding a grudge against, and be aware and mindful of where it is that you feel it. Is it in your stomach? What is the first thing that hurts you when you relive that moment? Well, I won't say relive, because people that hold grudges are still living in that moment. What is it that you feel? And try to release it. Know that grudges are self-destructing. They rot you from the inside out. They don't get better. It's internal. They won't get better until you release it. They won't get better until you forgive it. They won't get better until you accept it. They won't get better until you learn from it. So again, if you're holding on to a grudge, let it go. If you're unable to verbalize it to the person, because maybe you don't even understand what it is that hurt you so much, make a list. Write down what it is exactly that the person did that hurt you so much. Sometimes if you can just acknowledge it on paper, it's acknowledgement enough. Sometimes we feel things, but we can't connect with the physical aspects of it, and so it stays in emotion. But if you can, put that emotion down and say, well, it hurt me because of A, it hurt me because of B, it hurt me because of C, then you can see that most often than not, they're not even real things to hang on to. And it's so old. if you can start writing them down, put the date of when it happened. Like I said, if it was in 1815, you need to let that go. It's 200 years later. The person has moved on. Generations have happened. They've had kids. If it was an old girlfriend that you know, you and your girl used to hang out, she most likely has a new family, kids, and everything, and you're missing out because you're holding on to a grudge. Lots of time, parents and children break up like that, and they hold these grudges, and you know, the kids grow up, they get married, they have kids, and the grandparents have no part of it because of a grudge that's being held. And you know, time is passing. So when you have these grudgeful situations, the person that's holding the grudge is stuck in the past. They're not living, they're not having a happy life. Time is passing them. The other person, like I said, living their life, having a good time, they've learned to move past it. So again, if you find that you're a person that's holding a grudge, even one grudge, and that's not to say that there aren't times when people insult you or injure you and you shouldn't, you know, distance yourself away from them, because, you know, preserve yourself, love yourself enough to know that, you know, some people aren't for you, and that's okay. But you don't have to hold on to the anger, the sentiment of it. You can let it go. We see it lots and lots of times on court shows. People maim or murder people's family members, and you know, they say, oh, I forgive them, I'm good, I don't hate them, you know, and you're sitting there saying, what? I would never, what, first chance I get, I do such and such and such, and you know, you're holding a grudge for them. But the person has let it go. It's because they understand that that person has to deal with their actions. They're going to deal with the repercussions of their actions. If you understand the universal laws and you know that what goes around comes around, the other person will deal with it. But if you also understand the nature and the ugliness of holding a grudge, you know that it's going to rot you and eat you from the inside out. And most times that's what they say. I can't hang on to that feeling. I'm not going to keep myself locked in that state. I'm not going to keep myself locked in that date. Because again, grudges are over past injury or past insult. So again, people, if you're holding on to a grudge, let it go. Live, be happy, learn from it. Remember that we're here to learn. We're not here to be angry, to be bitter, to be rich, or to be, you know, any of those things. We're here to learn enlightenment. We're here to ascend. We're here to become better. And when you let go of these grudges, you get on a higher frequency. You raise yourself. You ascend. And each time you forgive and you learn from it, you ascend higher and you become a better person. And that's what higher frequency is all about. Thank you for listening, and blessings.